To me, any person that has had success in their life and lost it are much easier to coach than people that have never had success and want it. You can't replace that desire. Obviously, you have to have desire. You just can't, be someone who wishes it. You have to have the desire and put the work behind it. But people that have fallen off the horse, so to speak, as you described, they already know the success principles that were required to get where they were the first time. And if you can just get them to shift, and maybe you're doing an industry change or you're doing something synergistic to what you did before but in a different format, it's easy to put strategies behind that because all success principles in business are similar. So just following that strategy and making sure that they follow through on the things that they need to do in order to get back where they were before.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the Hero of the Hour podcast. Today, we're joined by Murray Miller, a financial strategist, educator, entrepreneur, and the founder of the Family Business podcast. But his expertise goes far beyond these titles. Murray is also an author and an inspiring speaker. Murray's philosophy is simple but transformative. A recurring income is the lifeblood of a freedom lifestyle. He specializes in the art of balancing the timing of business ventures with the implementation of strategic wealth plans. His unique approach breathes life into each of his clients' endeavors, creating a financial fortress that safeguards not only them, but their families as well. In today's episode, we'll dive deep into Murray's proven system for developing a recurring income stream and crafting a tax-advantaged residual wealth strategy. But that's not all. Murray Miller will also share his personal definition of a hero. Someone who embodies the willingness to do the right thing, even when it might not serve their own best interests. It's an inspiring perspective that's bound to resonate with our listeners. Throughout the episode, you'll discover the 8 major sources of residual income, the exciting future of the Family Business podcast, and Murray's exceptional coaching techniques for helping people bounce back from setbacks. Enjoy the show.
I'm here today with Murray Miller, an entrepreneur's entrepreneur. First of all, Murray, welcome to the Hero of the Hour podcast.
Thanks for having me, Mark. This is awesome.
Murray, I always start, before we get into it, one of the reasons I call this the Hero of the Hour podcast is I always like to have people on that are either my personal heroes or are heroes to other people. So I'd love to I always ask that question. Tell me a little about either about what a hero means to you or who are some of the heroes in your life?
I knew you were going to ask me this question because of the name of your podcast. So I thought about it a little bit. And the best thing that I can come up with, as far as a hero for me, is someone that actually does the right thing, even when it's not in their own best interest. And I think in business, it's been my guiding light, and I think in life it makes sense as well. So yeah, I think when you're doing something selflessly for other people or in business, and not necessarily taking care of yourself first. I can relate to that. So that I would say that describes heroism for me.
I want to read this because I don't want to get it right. But I think anybody who knows you would describe you as a financial coach. And obviously, you have your own podcast as well, about the family business, because you really truly do have a family business. But I want to read the hats that you wear. You're a financial strategist. You're an entrepreneur. You're an author. You're a speaker. You're a business coach, and as I mentioned, the host of the Family Business podcast. And I know your expertise lies in recognizing the importance of diversifying income streams. Um, I think that's something that's critical to everybody. Uh, love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, they say that the average person that has become a millionaire, self-made, has more than 7 streams of income. I don't know if that's true or not. That's why I've read that, and it's been more places than I can shake a stick at. But the truth is, if one thing is not working for you, it's always good to have a backup plan. So for people that have a 9 to 5, or have a job with a salary, regardless of the hours that they work, it's always a good idea, because of the environment that we're in, to have something else that is working for you, especially something that has a residual component to it, so that you can make money not just when you're working, but also when you're not working, or when you're sleeping, so to speak. So yeah, it's always been for me, one of the things that drives our podcast is residual income. I wrote an ebook, that is entitled "The 8 Sources of Residual Income," and those are the 8 major sources. There's many more than that today. I mean, just look at our kids, right? Generation Y, Z, the millennials. These guys, they're not following the path that we followed, or our parents followed, as far as the 40-year plan with the working 40 hours a week. That's just not the deal anymore. So there are so many things we can do with the intervention of the internet and AI and all the things that are happening today, that can create side hustles and additional income for us that could be synergistic with what we do in our 9 to 5. So yeah, I'm all about having multiple streams of income, and I've coached many people in that area. There's different ways to do it, and like I said, at least 8 major sources, but many other sources of income as well that you can utilize.
Well, I think the question when they beg, there's two questions that come from that response. The first is, I agree that most people are not spending 40 years with one company, working 40 hours a week in an office. What do you think it looks like now, and what do you think it's going to look like for our kids and grandkids? 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 years from now?
Exactly. It's a good question. I mean, the truth of the matter is I see that a lot of people in our category, I'm a baby boomer, and I consider myself, somewhat up to date on technology. But as far as I'm concerned, I watch people like my daughter, who's 29, my son, who's 22, and just getting ready to go out into the world. They've already started businesses, numerous businesses, online businesses, that we never could do or did do when we were young. I mean, when we were young, for me, multiple streams of income was shoveling driveways and mowing lawns and delivering newspapers. Those things are they're not the same anymore, right? So I do see that the workforce is changing. Obviously, artificial intelligence is going to change everything. It's going to change the game, especially right now for people like us, for marketing and for purposes that help us with our business. And I see that that's going to get nothing but better over the next few years. I mean, the intelligence that we're seeing now just with Chat GBT is ridiculous. And you can see, a year from now, it won't look anything like what it looks like right now. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot different than what we're used to seeing as far as our workforce is concerned.
We've a very similar philosophy, and we believe there's only two asset classes, even though we know there's dozens, and we call them either paychecks, or either free capital or play checks. And so we want our clients to have a series of assets that will give them a guaranteed or highly reliable stream of income. And then we want to have another series of assets where you can spend it, you can save it, you can give it away. But the important thing is, it will not be responsible for producing income for your family. But I still think there's one more level. We want people to have earned income, if not in perpetuity, certainly beyond normal retirement age. And I think one of the mistakes so many businesses have is, I think a lot of businesses get sold too prematurely, and they see that big shiny number, but by the time they pay off the debt, they pay the taxes, and then they have to put that capital to work. They might have been better off holding at least a piece of that company, if not all of it. Not in every case. I think every case is unique and individual, but it's amazing to me how many people put 40 years in a business and build it up so it's very successful, and then sell it. And by the time they're left, with the net number, it's that all that glitters, let's say, is not gold. You want to share with our viewers, our listeners, some of the 8 strategies you have, or any of the ones you think that people really ought to know from your book?
Yes, absolutely. And I will tell you, for just to comment on what you had just said, I've sold several businesses, and I agree with you. There is the right time to sell, and there are right partners to sell to. And all those things have to be considered. So, the fact that you're an expert in that area is amazing, because most people, let's face it, most people don't sell their businesses because they are their business and it doesn't run without them. There's no systems behind it, and it doesn't have any kind of a residual component to it. It's just an individual that does the business and drives everything. So for those lucky ones that can sell a business, they have to follow that strategy that you just talked about for sure. As far as the 8 sources, I mean, one of the big ones, and I know you'll relate to, is real estate. Obviously, if you can get yourself in a situation that you're leveraged with rental income, that's going to create a nice residual income for you. Obviously, it's a little higher risk than some of the other ones that I talk about, because you've got to come up with some capital in most cases, and you've got to be able to maintain the properties. But yes, you can certainly create a nice residual income with that. We also talk about, online, affiliate marketing, network marketing. These are lower cost ways of getting involved in a residual income business, but you've got to acquire the people skills necessary and the tenacity to keep going when those businesses tend to build slowly. And then over a period of time, you can build up to something that becomes much more substantial. Those are things that require expertise and your participation. And then, of course, there's businesses that require your money. And if you have money, you can put them in the right places and have the money do work for you, like in dividend paying stocks or in, private placement life insurance, things of that nature that can actually help you build a residual income so you can make your money make money for you. Would you agree with that? Those are some of the ways that you talk about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's, I think it's, and I think that it also takes a great deal of discipline for people. I think I think that one of the roles that is so needed, and why your company is successful, is um, it's one thing to have the knowledge and the ability to go do that, which not that many people have. But then even people with the knowledge, they know what they need to do, but they need somebody that not only provides them the direction, but they also need to provide them some creativity. But they also need to provide them some companionship along the way on the journey. I think very few people can be do-it-yourselfers, particularly in a world where the world's continuing to get disrupted all the time, because a lot of as an example, you know, I think when we were kids, I remember thinking that if you went into one of the best towns in any city in America and they said, "Oh, you know, a retail location in this town never comes up, probably comes up every 10 years. So if one comes available and you need a retail space, you ought to grab that space." And now some of the best towns in America look like Mogadishu. They're boarded up, they're there. So if we were kids and wanted to own retail space, or office space now, or even now, every company that I see, you mentioned real estate before. Most of the companies that we have are in leases, but the majority of them, when they renew their leases, are going to renew their lease for a smaller space. If they have 1 million square feet, they might have 200,000 square feet, once the lease expires. And,
Right.
we even in our concept, having all the senior people have their own private offices, we're even us are even discussing hoteling with more Zoom rooms and more conference rooms and less private office spaces. So I think the world keeps evolving, and I think that the line I like to use is, I'm not afraid to be different. I'm afraid to be the same.
Mm.
And I think that that's something that we try to teach our clients. Um, you use the word side hustle a lot in your business. That's Elisa uses that term, son. What is a side hustle? I mean, I know what a side hustle is because I live with Lisa DeMeo, but that's a term that I've only heard from you and from her. So tell me what a side hustle is.
It really is just a modern way of saying, a second thing that you do outside of your normal 9 to 5, your normal business or your normal career. And it's something that you put effort into. Obviously, hustling is something that, most entrepreneurs are very familiar with. And I just wanted to speak to what you said just a minute ago about retail space, because isn't it interesting how we've seen that shift? I mean, my primary residence is in Massachusetts, and not too far from where I live in Foxborough, there's a giant mall. And it's been just getting worse and worse year after year with less and less people visiting it, until finally, guess what? Someone came along and bought the entire mall and is turning it into a giant warehouse little company called Amazon.
I've
Drop
I've heard
shipping,
I've heard
right?
of them. I've heard of Amazon.
It's changed the game, right? It's completely changed the game. So I see where you're going with the retail space for sure. And that's changing the real estate game. Even the company that Lisa and my wife and I are involved in with Isogenics, that company, I have to tell you, they have a huge building out in Utah that is mostly abandoned during the week because they've gone on to a different style of amount of people that have to come in from a corporate standpoint. Most people are working from home now. I mean, that's not unique for Isogenics. That's every major company is dealing with that with office space. And I'm sure it's happening. You're right in the heart of everything down in Big Apple, right? So I'm sure everything's more evident to you than it is to most people around the country that don't live in a big city. Yeah,
I'm still not convinced that I still want to see how this shakes out. I think that clearly the needle has moved, and that I don't think everyone's going to be working 5 days a week from the office. And I think with technology that had already started pre-COVID.
right.
But I also think that depending on the business and the culture of your business, that ultimately people that own businesses are not growing businesses; they're growing people. Like one of my huge pet peeves, Marie, is when someone says, when I talk to a business owner, they go, my biggest expense is payroll. My biggest expense is people. And I'm thinking, well, if they're an expense, you should fire them. I said, but if they're an investment, um, that you should nurture and grow them. And that I think that, as long as you can get a 4 or 5 to 1 return on your money, I think you should be growing everything, including people. But that's sort of a pet peeve of mine. And the thing I worry about with all of this virtual work is, can you really develop? Is it you're going to have to come up with other strategies to build the culture of your organization when everybody's working from their kitchen or from their dining room table, and you don't have a lot of face to face. And I think I'm again the jury is still out, because Zoom has been very effective for us as not only a communication device but a transportation device. But I
Mm,
also know that a lot of my relationships are 5, 10, 20, 30 years old. And so when you have a 30-year-old relationship, it's okay to look at each other over the Zoom because you know each other very well, or you have other interactions. I wonder if this is the first time you're meeting somebody. And if you're not a baby boomer like we are, if you're a 23-year-old kid or a 28-year-old kid, do you have the ability and the skill sets to be able to, create, instead of transactional relationships, can you create transformational relationships?
yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more. As a matter of fact, after this podcast, I'm getting on the phone on a Zoom call with three other individuals. One of them's in Boston. I'm in Huntington Beach, California right now. One of them's in New Jersey. And one of them's in Florida. We're meeting for the first time. We're having a virtual meeting. We're talking about a tremendous net worth that we're working with this one individual putting together a very complicated insurance product for him. And we're doing it all, we don't have to, four of us don't have to get on a plane and meet in a room, right? We're doing it all over Zoom. That's just normal nowadays. And it's, I think people trust it. You can record it. There's, information you can go back on. You can exchange documents. So obviously that's huge. I also wrote down what you said. I mean, it's not just, it's not just about communication. It's about transportation, which is my point. So I think that everything is changing there. One other point you made that I'd love to just expand on a little bit is human capital. You talked about, is your payroll an expense, or these people that you're investing in? And my family's a huge believer in personal development. And, I talk about money mindset all the time on my podcast. You've got to develop the right mindset, because you can't outgrow or outperform your own limitations in your mind. As far as people ask, how do you make so much money? How do you become a millionaire? How do you become financially free? Those things aren't just about having a business that produces income. It's about what's in your head, right? What's in between the ears, and just those shifts. And I know you've probably done this with many of your clients. You make that shift with them where they can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that strategy to get there. And then all of a sudden you start to see things happen, and the wealth just comes. It's just abundant.
It's as somebody who's a fellow, I always say, my goal of every podcast I have is to finish the podcast. I'm not a professional podcast host. I'm just somebody who knows how to take care of people. That's what I think my unique ability is. Um, you started a podcast not that long ago, only 3 or 4 years ago, and it's been very, very successful. where do you see podcasts morphing? They were state of the art, let's call it 10 years ago, where, only, where there were not a lot of them. Now there's many more of them. What do you tell me where you think where do you think the podcast industry is going, and what do you think your podcast, how is that going to continue to change? Like, I know one of the things you shared with me was, you instead of having these long, hour long podcasts, you keep them a lot crisper, a lot sharper, and a lot shorter. But tell me give me your thoughts about where your podcast is going long term.
It's a great question. I've seen more and more major celebrity hosts of maybe news hours, on the big cable TV stations leave their position making anywhere from 5 million to $15 million a year and start a podcast. Follow the money, right? Where is this going? That people like to be free to do and say what they want without being edited, and we're all about freedom of speech, right? So people want to hear what people are saying. Some podcasts are raw, and there's a lot of opinions out there that we know of. So I see the podcast being a freedom tool for people that want to share their opinions and have guests on that have controversial opinions, so that they can debate these things, and they tend to go into a direction that can easily be monetized if that's what the goal is of the podcast. Because if you're getting a lot of views, it's all about eyeballs. People are going to want to advertise on your channel, and you can promote other products and things of that nature. Now, I have never done that. And by the way, my podcast is only 2 years old. It's not 3 or 4 years old yet. It's only 2 years old. We've got a great audience. We've got a great group of listeners. They're very proactive as far as getting back in touch with me and letting me know things that they want to hear, or things that they didn't understand that they'd like expansion on. So I've got an interactive community that's partially due to social media and partially due to the podcast. But right now, for me, it's just a tool to have a lot of information to share with people that I think that they're not going to have otherwise. I've always tried to lay out the truth and just be very transparent in what I'm talking about. And if I don't understand something completely myself, I'll say that, and I'll look into it. I'll research it, and I'll find out more. So I see the podcast just being a means to reach people that are of the same like in mind that I have, and going in that direction. Healthy people that are trying to improve their lives, that want to be financially fit, and want to live, a life of abundance. And I love attracting that community and interacting with that community. So I'll continue on that path.
One of the things I've heard you talk about is, you know, you've developed some strategies to overcome both emotional and physical drain while you're improving your finances. I care to comment on that?
Well, for me, it's as simple as this. For me, about 10 years ago, I put away the frying pan and I took out a blender. And I started really taking control of my nutrition, which made a huge difference for me, because as I was building my business, I had a college funding practice for the better part of 2 decades. And when I was building that on a national scale, I was jumping on planes, I was meeting advisors, I was meeting with clients, I was meeting with guidance counselors, building that high school workshop, doing all these things that really required me to be on a plane a lot and travel. And I obviously took people out to lunch and dinner and entertained and things of that nature. And with all that, um, unwanted weight came on, and my energy level went down, and I wasn't eating right, and I felt like I was getting old. So when I made that shift to really concentrate on my nutrition, it gave me the energy that I needed in order to live a life that was free of, all of those roadblocks, if you will, that happen when you don't have energy, because you make choices without energy that are usually detrimental to your health and to your energy and that being that you have.
Yeah, I think that's one of the benefits of COVID, is that when you're on the, I was the road warrior prior to COVID. Now I have some of the, younger guys doing more of the traveling now, and COVID, quite frankly, has eliminated a lot of traveling because people are very comfortable seeing you on Zoom. You don't have to fly from New York to California to have a meeting or to have dinner. But I remember that, you two things. One is you're out 3 or 4 nights a week, and it's New Year's Eve for that person, so they want to have 2 martinis and a bottomless glass of red wine, and they always take you to the best steakhouse in town. And you don't need a coach; you need a cardiologist, on your team, you know, or or somebody from the Betty Ford Clinic, because and
Right.
it's so funny. I spent years, or probably about the last 10 or 15 years, learning how to say, "Hey, is tonight we're gonna have a drink or two, or is tonight I'm gonna just drink club soda and try to make sure the client's comfortable, or just have that bottomless glass of red wine that turns into just one red wine because." When you're having rounds of drinks, another round, another round, another round, and there are some people, quite frankly, get a little uncomfortable when they're drinking and you're not drinking. Um, and so I just got comfortable where, if you and I had dinner and I wasn't drinking, I'd say, hey, I'm trying to lose some weight today. Would you mind if I drank some iced tea or club soda today? Would that bother you? And hopefully, hopefully you'd say no. But there's some folks. It was amazing, and and not only they want to go to a steak dinner and drink, then they want to go out for drinks after the drinks, or who knows where they'd want to go. So
That's right.
I uh, I actually think that's one of like the life's blessings of not having to travel.
That's true.
That's one of the positives. I mean, there are some negatives as well too, because I do think that that so much of what I think my kids, and you mentioned your kids are 29 and 22. I've got 5 kids between 16 and 24. I think they spend so much time on video games rather than and on their phones instead of interaction, that I wonder if they understand in business where the magic happens, that relationships are important, and that sometimes it's the magic that happens. It never happens in the meeting, it happens after the meeting, or there's a connection that comes, that is the transformational piece, that doesn't come in the formal part of the presentation. And I find that even some of my younger associates and partners, I think they get it, but they have not experienced it because they didn't grow up in it like you and I did.
I wouldn't argue that at all. I mean, I love in-person meetings, Mark, because it gives me the opportunity to see the reaction. And sometimes things are said, after the meeting's over, like you said, when you're walking out the door, or getting ready to leave, that you pick up on and you say, okay, now I understand this person's personality, where they were coming from, more than you can do on a Zoom meeting, because when the Zoom meeting ends, you don't have that interaction. So there's definitely flying New York to LA to have that dinner sometimes is a good thing. So I'm torn between the personal meetings and the Zoom meetings. I think efficiency wise, obviously, online is going to be hands down the winner, but it doesn't replace human interaction. And I think that's what happened during the pandemic, as you know, as well as anyone else. That's what people missed. They missed talking to people and having interaction and that human connection that is so important, that we found out over the 2 years that we were going through that, and the shutdown, and all that stuff.
One of the things we've been fortunate enough that we've our business has pretty much consistently grown, and I'm not saying we've never had a year that was less than the previous year, but it was statistically insignificant. The thing I do notice with our clients, it's about it's money is never about math; it's always psychological, and you've got to think that for most people, that that they have financial setbacks in their life. They lose a job, they lose their big customer. The industry gets disrupted. Sometimes through fault of their own. Oftentimes through no fault of their own.
Mhm.
Um, how do you help coach people to get back on the saddle?
Yeah, I mean, to me, any person that has had success in their life and lost it are much easier to coach than people that have never had success and want it. You can't replace that desire. Obviously, you have to have desire. You just can't, be someone who wishes it. You have to have the desire and put the work behind it. But people that have fallen off the horse, so to speak, as you described, they already know the success principles that were required to get where they were the first time. And if you can just get them to shift, and maybe you're doing an industry change, or you're doing something synergistic to what you did before, but in a different format, it's easy to put strategies behind that, because all success principles in business are similar. So just following that strategy, and making sure that they follow through on the things that they need to do in order to get back where they were before.
Yeah, I think the other thing I think is I think the number one job of an entrepreneur or an entrepreneurial thinking person is they've got to protect their confidence. Meaning that when you have that setback, or you have that change of industry, or you have a change of career or something, that ultimately it's you've got to protect the confidence, because I think that oftentimes you go to that uncertainty, and where I think firms like ours and yours can be so helpful is to be there to, to make sure that they've got that they've got that light in the beacon of light to be able to help them say, hey, no, you can get this done. It's going to take time. Don't be so hard on yourself. Here's the things you need to do. You got this. And
Right.
because so many people, when they make that change, I can't tell you, how sad it is to see somebody who was successful and to see them get knocked down and to see them stay down or never get
Yeah.
back up to the previous heights. That to
Right.
me is a tragedy. And I think if they had if we were able to help them protect their confidence, or we were able to help them create a support system around them, I think there's no reason why you couldn't have been successful. I think the lessons of success you learn in life, sometimes people forget.
I agree. I mean, they say sometimes describing success is literally going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm, right? Getting to the next thing, because in order to get to success, you have to go through failure. So that's why I said it's sometimes easier to coach people that have already been there and lost it for whatever reason. Business went down, something happened, loss of a partner, anything could have been, changes, contracts, lose a big client, any of those things. You can get back on the horse. You just follow the same success principles, right?
You know what? It's funny. I feel like it's a therapy session because I haven't thought about this in a long time. But one of the like the seminal things in my life was playing high school basketball. Meaning,
Mm.
I got cut as a freshman. I was overweight. Got cut as a freshman. Thought I was a pretty good player, but I was overweight. And everybody, or most people make the freshman team. It doesn't, they don't start really cutting down till you get to the JV or the varsity. And I remember working as hard as I could to get in the best shape of my life and to not get outworked. And made the JV team. I was probably the 14th or 15th guy on a 15-man team. And I got in when we were down, up or down by 40 points with 30 seconds left. Um, and then became the sixth man or seventh man as a junior, and then started as a senior. And so the couple of things that you took away from that is, and by the way, we had one guy play in the NBA who was on our team. We had guys play pro baseball. We had guys, won a national championship in football. So we were playing with some real athletes on our team. And so the idea, the two things I took away from that is nothing's impossible if you're willing to work hard enough for it and you put the right strategies around it to do that. And it's something that I've just continued to go back to, is that I needed to you have the right plan in place, and then I needed to make sure that nobody would outwork me, nobody would outthink me, and nobody outwork me. And and I wound up being a pretty good high school basketball player. Obviously not, not NBA caliber, and I didn't play in college either. But it taught me two things. It taught me that I could get that. The other thing it also taught me is that it made me not competitive with other people. Meaning, my goal was to be the best version of me, so that like one of the things I'm proudest of that career is I feel like I got every ounce of my ability out on the court. Did that allow me to be to become a 5-star recruit to Duke or North Carolina or Indiana? No, it did not. But it allowed me to feel proud that I could then be happy for everybody else, because if I became the best version of me and I got the most out of my ability, then I was happy for everybody else. So if I, and that's in life. If I have $1 and the dollar's the most I can have, if you're my friend, Murray, I hope you have $20. I hope you have $100. And I can then be a cheerleader for other people, because I'm not competing with you. I'm competing with being the best version of me.
I love that. I love that. And you know what? Your success and what you've been able to accomplish in your life, Mark, that rubs off on other people. And that strategy, that philosophy of, the more I have, the more abundance that I can provide for you. And if I can do my best, it can rub off on you. I think that makes a huge difference in people's lives. And that's why people want to be around you. I mean, you're a magnet to people that feel that same energy that you're putting out there.
How can individuals or companies benefit from the family business, and let's call it the Murray Miller's expertise and empire? How can people benefit from that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the things that I think that was a guiding light for me was when I was getting out of high school. I came from a family that had very low means. I was brought up by a single mom. We didn't have enough money to send any of the kids to college, so college was something that I wasn't able to do on. I had to do it on my own. So I was able to work a couple of different jobs and put myself through community college and get a degree that way. So as I got older, I found that with the rising cost of college, there must be a way that I can help people get their kids into college. So that's what was the guiding light to start my college funding business. And it turned into a huge business. I mean, it turned into a national company that I eventually sold. I had a 3-year non-compete after I had sold the business, but I'm past that now. And so I'm back to helping people with figuring out how they're going to plan and pay for college in the most tax efficient manner and with strategies that make sense without robbing from their retirement. That's one of my, I guess that would be one of my superpowers, is helping people with their college funding. And certainly with, residual income in retirement. I mean, that everyone's concerned about it. No one has a deadline on it. No one has a set plan. I should say most people, the vast majority of people, don't have a set plan. They spend more time budgeting for a vacation than they do budgeting for their future in retirement. So all of those things are areas that I can help people and continue to help people, not just team members, but also my coaching clients and people that come through the podcast that are looking for that. We can help in those areas.
Well, Maria, I know how busy you are. I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to share your wisdom. And I think I heard a lot of wisdom today. Not surprised, and
Appreciate that.
just much gratitude for you sharing. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on the show, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. Thank you, everybody. That closes another episode of the Hero of the Hour podcast with Murray Miller.